Have you ever looked around your life and wondered, is this all there is? You smile, you show up, you carry on. But deep down, there's a quiet ache, a feeling that somewhere along the way, you settled for less than you deserve. This story is for anyone who's ever felt that way. Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 58 when she first whispered to herself, "I don't think I'm happy." On the surface, everything seemed fine. Married for over 30 years, 2 grown kids, a quiet home, and a man who, in his own way, cared for her. But deep inside, she felt invisible. Conversations had become transactions. What's for dinner? Did you pay the bills? Don't forget the doctor's appointment. No one asked how she was really feeling. No one noticed when her eyes stopped lighting up. And the worst part? She stopped noticing it herself. Years passed like that, gray and quiet. Until one afternoon, while sitting in the parking lot of a grocery store, Margaret watched a woman about her age walk by, laughing, radiant, holding hands with someone who looked at her like she mattered. It hit Margaret like a wave. She had stopped believing she could feel that way again. She had traded hope for stability, and in doing so, she had forgotten her own worth. Or take David, 61, retired early, successful by any standard. He had the house, the car, the golf club membership, and a profound emptiness he couldn't explain. He had been with the same partner for decades, but they'd grown into strangers under the same roof. They watched TV in silence. They went to bed at different times. They stopped touching. When David confided in a friend, he was told, "That's just how marriage is at our age." But deep down, David didn't believe that. He wanted more than just companionship. He wanted connection. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to laugh again, deep, belly laughter that made his eyes water. But the fear held him back. What would people think? Was he selfish for wanting more? Was he too old to start over? These stories aren't rare. They're quietly unfolding in homes across the world. People settling into lives that no longer fit. Hearts silenced by routine, and dreams packed away because they didn't seem practical anymore. And what's most heartbreaking is not the loneliness itself, but how common it is to pretend it doesn't exist. We put on brave faces. We celebrate anniversaries with hollow smiles. We accept good enough and convince ourselves it's all we need. But deep inside, many of us carry a quiet hope that it's not too late to feel alive again, to wake up next to someone who makes your soul feel safe, to sit across the table from someone who truly listens, to walk through life knowing you are deeply, wholeheartedly loved. This chapter is about recognizing the emotional toll of settling. It's about seeing how we slowly lose pieces of ourselves when we ignore our needs. And it's about creating space for truth, for healing, and for the possibility of something more. Because when you finally admit, "I want more than this," that's not weakness. That's the beginning of strength. That's where your story truly begins. Margaret sat in her kitchen one morning, stirring her coffee in silence. The house was quiet, as always. The same beige walls, the same ticking clock. But something felt different. It was as if her spirit had shifted, ever so slightly, from numbness to awareness. She had been journaling for weeks, trying to make sense of the sadness that lingered in her chest. Each word she wrote peeled back another layer. "I miss myself," she finally wrote. And when she did, she wept. That sentence changed everything. It wasn't about her husband being cruel. He wasn't. It wasn't about a dramatic betrayal or some explosive fight. It was about realizing that she had slowly disappeared, piece by piece over the years. Her laughter, her dreams, her softness. They had all been set aside to make space for everyone else. And in that still moment, she made a quiet promise to herself: I will no longer be a stranger in my own life. Margaret began to do small things first. She went back to painting, something she hadn't done since her 20s. She walked in the park with no destination. She spoke more honestly with her husband, not with anger, but with truth. And when the time came, she made a painful, courageous decision. They separated, not out of hatred, but in pursuit of truth, of herself. Meanwhile, David found his turning point in the most unexpected place: a support group for men navigating retirement transitions. He didn't even want to go at first. He told himself it was too soft, too emotional, not for someone like him. But on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, he sat in a circle with strangers and said, I don't know who I am without my career, and I don't think my wife even knows me anymore. Another man across the circle nodded with tears in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, David felt seen. It opened something in him. He started asking questions, not just to others, but to himself. What do I love now? What makes me feel alive? Have I stopped believing I deserve joy? With time, David began showing up differently in his life. He stopped hiding behind small talk. He cooked dinner for his wife and asked her about her day like it mattered. He admitted his fears, his regrets, and his hopes. They began talking, really talking, for the first time in years. Some nights, they laughed until midnight. Other nights, they cried for all the time they had lost. David didn't have to leave to begin again. He just had to show up as himself. The turning point is never loud. It's not a movie scene with music swelling in the background. It's quiet, honest. It happens in journal entries, in late-night conversations, in trembling hands reaching for something real. And it begins the moment you decide, I want more, I deserve more, and I will not keep living small. That decision doesn't fix everything, but it changes everything. It opens the door to a life where you don't just survive, you finally start to live. The journey after the turning point is never easy. Margaret thought that once she made the decision to leave, she'd feel instantly free, light, joyful, unburdened. But instead, she faced a strange mix of grief and relief. Some mornings, she woke up feeling powerful and clear. Other days, she questioned everything. She missed the comfort of routine, the sound of footsteps in the hallway, even the small talk over coffee. But what she didn't miss, what she no longer wanted, was the emptiness of being unseen. She joined a local art group where she met people of all ages creating just for the joy of it. Her hands were awkward at first, her colors unsure. But over time, the paintbrush felt like an extension of her soul. Her work was raw, imperfect, and utterly hers. She also started dating, not with the desperation of needing someone to fill a void, but with the curiosity of discovering who she could connect with now as the woman she had become. It was scary, vulnerable. But for the first time in decades, she was choosing from a place of self-worth, not fear. Meanwhile, David continued working on his relationship. He and his wife went to couples counseling, not because they were breaking apart, but because they both wanted to learn how to meet each other again, with open hearts and honest words. It wasn't magical. There were awkward sessions, defensiveness, silence. But over time, something shifted. They started holding hands again. They cooked together, went on small weekend trips, shared memories they'd forgotten. But more than anything, they created new memories, ones rooted in presence, in real connection. David also began volunteering at a local youth center, helping young men navigate their future. He was surprised to find that, in guiding them, he was also healing the boy inside himself, the one who had always been taught to be strong, silent, and selfless. Both Margaret and David learned that rebuilding a life, or a love, doesn't require grand gestures. It requires truth. It requires patience. It requires honoring the quiet work of transformation. They faced loneliness, moments of doubt, and plenty of uncomfortable growth. But every step forward was a step toward alignment, toward a life that felt like theirs again. What they both realized was this: fulfillment doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from choosing yourself. It comes from being brave enough to say, "This isn't enough for me," and tender enough to ask, "What could be?" Their journeys were different, but their destination was the same. A life lived awake, a love felt deeply, a self rediscovered. You don't have to tear your life apart to begin again. Sometimes the most radical change is the softest one. A decision to honor your inner voice, to follow where it leads, and to trust that even in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, it's not too late. Not too late to grow, not too late to feel joy, not too late to come home to yourself. Margaret now wakes up in a smaller home with creaky floors and sunlight that spills through linen curtains. There are no more shared schedules or daily negotiations, but there is peace. And more importantly, there is presence. She waters her plants while humming old love songs. She sits on the porch with her coffee and journal, not because she's trying to solve anything, but simply because she enjoys her own company now. The loneliness still visits her sometimes, especially in the quiet hours of the evening. But it no longer frightens her. It reminds her that she is alive, still capable of feeling, still open to love. Love, for her, no longer means being chosen by someone else. It means choosing herself, every day, in big and small ways. It means listening to her needs, honoring her boundaries, and trusting that she's worthy of softness, of laughter, of being held. She's met someone recently. Kind eyes, gentle smile, good conversation. There's no rush, no pressure. Just the joy of discovering someone while staying true to herself. As for David, his days feel fuller now. Not because they are busier, but because they are lived with intention. He and his wife still have disagreements, of course. But now they talk through them without shutting down. He's learned to express what he needs, not with anger, but with vulnerability. And perhaps even more importantly, he's learned to listen, to truly hear her without defense or judgment. Their love isn't the same as it was in their 20s. It's deeper, wiser, built not just on shared memories, but on the choice to see each other again. David has discovered that healing isn't linear. Some days feel like breakthroughs. Others feel like he's starting over. But he no longer fears the process, because now he trusts it. There's something sacred about this stage of life. It strips away the noise, the performance, the pretending. It invites you to return to who you really are. And what both Margaret and David learned is this: you're never too old to choose joy, never too late to rewrite your story, never too far gone to come back to love, real love, honest love, whether it's with someone else or with yourself. They now live lives that reflect their hearts, not perfect lives, but true ones. Margaret paints nearly every day. Some of her work is displayed in a local cafe. She laughs with friends over wine, tells her story with pride, and carries herself like a woman who knows her worth. David continues mentoring young men. He tells them that strength isn't about silence, but about the courage to speak your truth. He holds his wife's hand when they walk through the park, not because they have to, but because they want to. And maybe that's the quiet miracle of it all. When you stop settling, when you reclaim your voice, when you remember your worth, you don't just survive, you thrive. You love again, not because someone saved you, but because you finally showed up for yourself. If this story touched something inside you, don't ignore it. Maybe you've been living on autopilot. Maybe you've convinced yourself that this is as good as it gets. But deep down, if there's even a whisper that says, "I want more," listen to it. That voice is your truth. It's your beginning. You're not too old. You're not too late. And you're not alone. We all deserve a life that feels real, a love that feels honest, a self that feels whole. So, take that first step. Write in a journal, call a friend, speak your truth. And if this story resonated with you, share it in the comments below. Let others know they're not alone. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this, real, raw, and full of hope. And if you're ready to go deeper, watch the next video. I chose myself at 60, and everything changed. Your new chapter is waiting. All it takes is one brave decision. Many of us reach a point in life where everything looks fine on the outside. We've done what was expected, built careers, raised families, stayed in relationships that felt good enough. But late at night, when it's quiet, we start to hear the questions we've been ignoring. Am I truly happy? Is this the love I dreamed of? Did I trade joy for comfort and passion for routine? It's not that we failed, it's that somewhere along the way, we stopped asking if we deserved more. We told ourselves we were too old to change, too tired to dream again, too far along to start over. But what if that's not true? What if the life and love we've always longed for still await us? Not in some perfect fantasy, but in the courage to believe we are worthy. This story isn't just about heartbreak or reinvention. It's about remembering your worth. It's about realizing that no matter your age or your past, you were never meant to settle. You were meant to live deeply and to love fully.